Director of the Governor's Office of Human Trafficking and Prevention. And we have Father Jeff Bayhi, founder of the Metanoia Manor Home for Sex Trafficked Girls. We're going to start.
Thank you so much. They asked me to use the microphone, which I don't usually do, because you know how you keep occasion quiet? Tie your hands behind your back. I am used to training law enforcement and training attorneys, prosecutors, and so I am usually pretty loud, and I like to move around a lot because that's the only way you can keep cops' attention is if you move a lot. Because if you stand still for too long, they look at other shiny things. I love y'all so much. But my name is Monica Taylor, and I am the Governor's Director of Human Trafficking Prevention. I've been in this position since January 5th at noon when he took office, but I worked in the governor, before he was governor and he was Attorney General, I worked in his office for 8 years, training law enforcement and the community on human trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence. This is my area of expertise. I've been involved in lobbying for DNA, stronger laws in the use of DNA in crimes, and sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking for a little over 22 years. I know you can't believe it. I look like I'm 25. I started when I was 5 years old. It's a crazy, crazy thing. But I'm super excited to be here tonight. I want to tell you guys a little bit about our office. We have a fantastic staff who is incredibly passionate about this issue and do great work. One of the things that we do is we head up the Human Trafficking Prevention Commission and Advisory Board, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell y'all that DA Russell serves on that commission. I see that she's here, and she is fantastic. Thank you. Y'all are very lucky to have her in this area. She is a great representative of y'all's. She serves on that commission for me and does incredible work there. But one of the big things that our office does is that, and there was a piece of legislation passed a few years ago that was called Act 662, which is sort of how we refer to it, as policy people. Starting January 1st of 2023, DCFS, which is the Department of Children and Family Services, their hotline, so this is the regular hotline that anybody would call to report child abuse against a minor by a parent or guardian. So that hotline number, we have an option on there, which is option 4, and you can call and report any suspicious activity around human trafficking. And here's the thing that's different between this and the way the hotline worked previously, is it doesn't have to be a parent or a guardian that is trafficking the child. So you can call and say, hey, there's this kid, she's 14, her parents don't know, she has a 25-year-old boyfriend. And so, but we saw them hanging out at the truck stop, and that's really weird, and she referred to him as a boyfriend, and so we think maybe it should be checked out. So those are the kinds of things that you can call in. So it doesn't have to be a parent or a guardian that you're reporting, which is a little bit different. And what it does is it goes to Louisiana State Police, and they filter it down to your local law enforcement. And then it also goes to something that we call a care coordinator. And our care coordinators are throughout the state. We have 17 of them in the state of Louisiana. And these are advocates who work with local law enforcement, DA's offices, services in the area, medical professionals to try and provide services to victims of human trafficking. So we hear a lot about, there's all this idea of what is human trafficking, what that looks like, there's the movies and all those things. But I'm here to tell you what we know from the data, and I'm going to get into the data in just a second. What we do know is that the main 2 types of trafficking in Louisiana, 46% of all cases that we have reported are familial trafficking. which means it is a family member who was trafficking a child. 46% of reported cases in Louisiana are a family member. It could be an uncle, it could be a stepfather, it could be a brother, it could be a sister, it could be a parent. It's a wide variety of things, okay? Sometimes it's a mother who doesn't understand because she was trafficked herself, and that's the only thing she knows, and so it's generational. And we're starting to see more and more of that as well. 38% of that is what we call the boyfriend. So that is a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old man who is dating a 13-year-old. I do a lot of presentations, or I did when I was at the Attorney General's office, to high school students, and I'm like, because you're 13 and that 30-year-old man is showing interest in you, that is not impressive. It doesn't say anything about you being mature. It talks about the fact that he can't get a 30-year-old woman, or a 25-year-old woman, or a 20-year-old woman, or an 18-year-old woman. He cannot manipulate them into doing everything that he wants. And so you should not be flattered by that. And I think we have to have those honest conversations with our children so that they're not falling for it. So I do want to give you some of the data. This is our statewide data from our report in 2023. So according to our data, we do have some duplicates in this data, right? So there's no way to really filter out those duplicates. But we have just over 1,700 people who were served, who were either confirmed or suspected of being victims of human trafficking. So that is 1,743 people who some way touched the system and said, I was a victim of human trafficking. Now, some of those people were currently victims. Some of those people were victims 10 years ago and were reaching out and realized, you know what? When my uncle did this to me, I was a victim of human trafficking. When he did that to me 20 years ago, I was a victim of human trafficking. I want help now because my trauma is coming up in my life every day and I'm doing things. So we had 720 that were actually confirmed cases, and we had 895 that were suspected cases in the state. In 2023, 60 of the 64 parishes reported at least one instance of a victim being served for human trafficking. So you may be saying, okay, that's a lot of victims. Where are the arrests? Where are the prosecutions? What's going on? Well, if you compare victims to arrest to prosecutions, you are comparing apples to oranges to bananas. They are not the same thing, and they're not the same numbers. And there's a wide variety of reasons why that 1,700 doesn't equal 1,700 arrests. And there's a wide variety of reasons of why that doesn't equal 1,700 prosecutions. It's not really the way that this works. And so you can't put that in the same category. These are notoriously hard cases, not only to work, but to identify and to make arrest on, much less prosecute. Of those that reported that we dealt with, that were in our report, 84% were female and 12 were males. So we do see a lot of males. We especially see males who are LGBTQ+. We see a lot of those males who end up getting involved in this as well. So we see a lot of that. For age, 83% were under the age of 17. We're 17 or under. So in the state of Louisiana, there is no law to charge someone under the age of 17 with soliciting sex. So if you are 16 years old and you are participating in a commercial sex act, someone is giving you money to have sex with them. That is human trafficking. We think of human trafficking as a triangle, right? You think there's a trafficker, a victim, and a buyer. But that's not always the case. Because if you are under the age of 18 and someone is giving you something to have sex with them, that is a commercial sex act, and that is human trafficking. Because they do not own the consent to participate in a commercial sex act. Do y'all understand that, what I'm saying there? Right? So we see cases, we have these conversations. These are really hard to prove. These are really hard to get a jury to understand that you have a 35-year-old who is having sex with a 13-year-old, and that they are buying them coins on a video game every time they have sex. That's human trafficking. And that is so hard to get a jury to understand and to prosecute. That's one of the reasons why we're having some of the issues that we're having. It's very easy to charge them with, not easy, nothing's easy to charge them with, we're talking about these cases. But when you have something, you can more easily get a jury to understand this is carnal knowledge of a juvenile, this is sexual abuse of a juvenile, than to understand this is actually what trafficking is. The other thing is that 44% are African American and 39% are white. So this is not really a racial issue. This crosses racial boundaries. In Louisiana, we see more sex trafficking than we see labor trafficking, but we are starting to see some more labor trafficking in the state. How am I doing on time?
You got a good 5 minutes.
Oh, I better hurry up. So I want to give y'all that number, and I can share it with the group so that y'all can put it on your Facebook and post it. But the hotline number for GCFS is 855-452-5437, and it's option 4. You can also go to the DCFS webpage and look up information on trafficking. If it is an adult, because adults can be human trafficking as well, and Louisiana has some of the strongest laws on adult human trafficking. So you do not have to prove what we call force, fraud, or coercion for anyone being trafficked between the ages of 18 and 21. And that is something that we've passed in Louisiana, and so that's a really strong law that we have. And so you can also call, and I can leave these numbers with you guys too. You can always call 911. If you ever think anyone is in immediate danger, you can always call 911. You can call the Louisiana State Police Fusion Center, or you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And these are all places where you can report instances of trafficking. Additionally, if you want some additional information and a full list of different types of information, we have a website. It is humantrafficking.la.gov. Pretty easy to remember. And you can get a lot of information there, including victim services. So we have the 17 care coordinators in the area. We have a care coordinator that serves Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish, based out of Terrebonne Parish, Chief. But we do have a care coordinator who can, if you have another group, if you have a church group or any kind of group that would like a speaker, we have somebody, the care coordinator can come out and give a talk and give you signs of tips and things to look for and indicators and all of those types of things, as well as those things are on our website as well.
Could you repeat what is the website?
Yep.
Human trafficking.
There's a QR code they can scan right up there.
Yes, and I have the QR code right here too. But it is humantrafficking.la.gov. You can scan that QR code. I also have the QR code here. If you can't get it to work for you from there, I have it up here. I'll leave it on the table and people can scan it on their way out. But there is a QR code on here that has more information as well. I severely underestimated the number of people who are going to be here tonight. And I did bring some of our indicator cards. So we do have some indicator cards here, and I can get you guys some more, so y'all can have them at your next meeting. But we also have, how do you identify what is considered force, fraud, or coercion, and what are some potential indicators. There used to be some things that we said all the time that have changed a little bit. So we used to say tattoos were a big one, right? Do y'all know how many 16-year-olds have tattoos now? Right? It's not that big of a deal anymore. When I was 16, I'm old. When I was 16, if you had a tattoo, it was something. But now, 16-year-olds do have tattoos, and so it's really not that big of a deal anymore. So there are some things that change over time, right? And so you have to kind of keep up with all the hip sayings and phrases. And I think I was teasing you the other day, Chief, right? About anybody in here have preteen boys? Preteen boys? Bruh? What's up, bruh? Yeah, they start calling you bruh again? They're built different. Those preteen boys are built different, bruh. They don't understand. We all thought we were built different at 13, which was the problem. But we do have, so indicators are hard to know about because they change so quickly. And in our society with Facebook, things change so quickly. And it's not always what you think or how you think it's going to present itself. We've seen cases where young girls and young boys are drawn into this through video games. How many of your kids play video games and they're talking to someone on the video game, whether through chat or physically having a conversation through a headset, and the person is saying, I'm a 13-year-old guy, I'm a 13-year-old girl. You don't know. You don't know who that is on the other line or what it is. When I'm from the Gen X generation, so it used to be, it's 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are? And so if your kids were home, they were safe.
Yes.
And that's not the case anymore. And the reason that's not the case anymore is because of those phones. They're connected 24/7. So I'm guessing I'm probably over my time. I see Dr. Bud standing up over here over my shoulder, giving me the eye. So I'm gonna wrap up by saying Governor Jeff Landry, he and I have been friends for a really long time. I lived in DC, I worked on some of these issues. When he became Attorney General, he thought it was really important that he had someone in this role who was gonna be out there every day fighting for the victims, and he knew that was gonna be me. And so I did that for 8 years in the Attorney General's office. I can tell you that Jeff Landry and the staff of the Governor's Office on Human Trafficking Prevention is 100% committed to fighting human trafficking in the state of Louisiana, and we will not stop. We will not stop fighting for these victims. These victims are being trafficked, they're being sexually assaulted, they're being victims of domestic violence, and we will not stop going after the perpetrators who victimize them, and we will not stop supporting the issues that affect them and get them the trauma care that they need. So thank y'all very much. I'm gonna stop now, Dr. Bud. Just get off my mic. Like the Oscars, play me off.
I'm Father Jeff Bayhi, the founder of Metanoia Manor. We took in our first resident in February of 2018. Today, we took in our 101st resident. And Father Chuck and I get the microphone, but I want you to look at this table. They're the heroes. They're the ones who make it happen. And I'd like to introduce, first of all, our superior, Sister Norma Nunez, Sister Nora Lee, and our recently hired director, Kelly Tourare. Father Chuck and I are like the pig and the chicken that they're walking down the street and they see a ham and egg breakfast. And the pig goes crazy. This is what, Barry, this day and time, I can't believe they do that. The chicken says, what's your problem? And the pig says, when you leave the eggs, you keep going. When I leave the ham, my butt's here to stay. They're the ones, 24/7. And so, whatever I say, whatever success I allude to, believe me, it's not me and Father Chuck. It's these wonderful sisters and our director who make this happen. First, we overlook evil. Then we permit evil. Then we legalize evil. Then we celebrate evil. Then we promote evil. And then we persecute anyone who still dares to call it evil. That's where we are.
That's right.
That's where we are.
Exactly.
And to think, we live in a country where if some of these college snowflakes have someone use the wrong pronoun, they think they need to be fired and taken out of the university system. And yet, in the United States, we have 5 million people bought and sold every day. Every day. According to the United Nations, there are 49.6 slaves worldwide. We have more slaves in 2024 in our kinder, gentler, woke world than we had in the combined 400 years of the African slave trade. And everybody acts like it doesn't exist. We just recently went through Black Lives Matters. And Black Lives Matters garnered $88 billion from corporate America. And you know what? If that $88 billion would have been invested in our underserved communities and given its children a greater opportunity to advance in life and more education, I would be shouting it from the rooftops and saying amen. But we give $88 billion to people who may have had ancestors who were slaves 7 or 8 generations ago. And this is how much we have for the 5 million slaves that are bought and sold in this country every year. We had a meeting in Washington. I met with the DOJ. I said, hey, you know, I'm licensed by the state of Louisiana. I run a juvenile facility, and we take care of children who've been victims of crime. Is there any money available? Well, let me ask you, Father, if someone is anatomically male, but self-identifies as female, will you take them in your shelter? I said, that's easy. The answer's not no, the answer's hell no. If you think I'm gonna let someone with male genitalia sleep next to teenage girls who've been repeatedly raped, you're crazy. Well, then you're not inclusive. For the longest time, we didn't even take per diem because we were not willing to abide by the state and federal definition of women's health care. I'm not going to save one and kill another one. That's not the way it works. And recently, DCFS has been very good, and since we have to be licensed by the state, we don't have custody of the children, okay? The state has custody. We're a licensed provider, okay? But in doing that, they said, if you get into a situation where that is something the child wants, you can put it back in state care. We're not going to force you to violate your conscience. And I really appreciate that, because Father Chuck and I did a sweep in 7 cities in California last summer. And let me tell you, I mean, we didn't bring our passport, but I mean, that's another country. anything faith-based out there, according to elected officials, is terrible. And let me tell you what these wonderful sisters and our director do. We've had 100 children, 101 as of today. And these children, and Monica was talking about 46%, and that's correct. We're a little bit higher than the national average of 42%. But of the children we receive, it's probably over 60% of our children have been trafficked by their primary caregiver. And think about it. Looking at the age of people here, you're either parents or grandparents, right? What enables someone to bring a child into the world and sell that child? You know, I talk about human trafficking not as a problem, as a symptom. It's a symptom of a very sick society where we have devalued human life to the point of thinking it's a matter of profit, pleasure, or possession. They had an arrest at a North Shore high school about 8 years ago of a 17-year-old I'm allergic to Father John.
You can come sit by me, Father John.
Of a 17-year-old high school senior trafficking 2 freshman girls at his high school. He was a big man on campus, the football star. 2 little freshman girls arrive and they're cute, you know, so he decides he's going to ooh them and wow them, okay? But they're really flattered. The big man on campus wants to spend time with us. Thank you. Thank you. Sugar-free, I need it. You can look at me and tell I need sugar-free. All right.
She just knows you're sweet enough. You're sweet enough already.
But he oohs them and ahs them, and eventually he gets them to send the picture. You know what picture I'm talking about? You know, this, you know, they don't have fully developed brains, okay? But they think, you know, this will prove that I love them, send the picture. That's it. I own you. He was making $1,000 a week selling 2 freshman girls to his classmates. Wow. Hey, tell me something. Who in the hell raises a child who at the age of 17 thinks he can sell 2 classmates, 2 innocent little girls? And so it's part of a society in which we live that's not getting better. And let me tell you something. Online pornography is a $152 billion a year industry. Now, I have 3 older brothers. One of them owns Green Acres here, okay? But I have 3 older brothers. And when I was, you know, getting curious, I had to work for it, but I found the Playboys in the top of the closet, okay? I found them. But that is not what kids are doing today. This is what kids are doing today. As Catholic priests, we can tell you the male population between 10 and 90 is about 70% dealing with pornography. And one of the things I do is I say, you have children? You have grandchildren? I want you to put their picture on your screensaver. And next time you go to access your entertainment, I want you to look at their little faces and wonder how you would feel if they're the star of the next show you're getting ready to watch. Because they are someone's child. They are someone's son, daughter. No one looks at porn and says, gee, I wonder if she's made her confirmation yet. That's not what we do. We've objectified. They're simply there for my pleasure. And guys, porn is our problem, okay? You know, that's why Danielle Steele has 1,000 romance novels. But guys, it's visual. And we need to step up. We need to man up, and we need to teach our sons the value, the dignity, and the inherent worth of women. They're not objects. They're very sacred people who offer us life. And that's one of the things when people say, what can I do? Man up and teach your children, your sons, to respect women as beautiful creatures of God, made in His image and likeness, who are a gift to us, and not someone simply there for our pleasure. Now let me tell you a little bit about some of what we do. She arrived, okay, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. She arrived, and she had just turned 16. She's out of the gangs in New Orleans East. She was tough. Flashing gang signs, telling everybody to F off. The poor nuns have learned more words that they never knew. Okay. And the nuns are wonderful. They're just natural mothers. And they had signs, welcome, we love you. Signs on the door, welcome and everything. Well, she rips the sign down and puts her own sign up. You don't know me, you don't love me, don't even stop here. She was tough. But she was 17 years old.
Tell us about her.
Huh?
What did she do
Well,
at 17 years of age?
she-
When she came in?
she-
She's a gang member. She have a gun?
No gun,
No gun?
no gun.
Oh, how about a bat?
She had a pacifier, her noonie. She had a baby bottle with a nipple that she drank out of, and she drug around her little Leo the lion, her stuffed animal. What does that tell you about at what age she was when the inappropriate behavior began in her life? Most of our children have had inappropriate sexual behavior in the home before the age of 6. So by the time you're 11, 12, and 13, and you're marketable, just one more thing. We've had a number of children turn 11, stay with us a year, and have their 12th birthday. We have a 16-year-old that comes in who's never ever had a birthday cake. And the sisters do a wonderful birthday party for her, and they just break down crying. Father Chuck and I go there every morning. We have to be fragrance-free. That's not hard for him, he smells. But anyway. We have to be fragrance-free because that cologne, it'll be a trigger. They'll end up in a fetal position in the corner. We don't ever walk up to our children and hug us. We're grandpas at this point, okay?
Let me say something.
Go ahead.
He's been talking about this girl, and there was a big birthday party, and they were having a very, very good time. Everybody was having a good time, and then I look over in the corner, and she's, in a fetal position. So, something that's that effect of that trauma that they have. He told you about the teenage boy that is making $1,000. An average pimp can get $100,000 to $160,000 a year from the girl he traffics.
Off a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
31%
really-
are young boys of the juvenile market,
So they're-
31%.
They really have trauma. Can I say, how much more do you want? You have a minute and a half left of my time. It's true, it's true.
Shut up and finish what you have to say.
I want to point out to you that how much trauma happens to these poor kids. It's different from somebody that prostitutes themselves as an adult, but the damage that it does. We had a lady that was rescued from human trafficking. She's from, as a consultant from Colorado. And she really She was trafficked by her father from the time she was like 3 years old up until when she went to junior high and realized that wasn't normal. And you would understand why you think it would be normal if it started happening at 3. Anyway, she got a master's degree in counseling, started a counseling service. It wasn't even like their legislature. And so she's somewhat contacting us. I think, how old would she be now? 40 years old. She's married, very successful. And I picked her up at the airport, and we're talking along, and she says, you know, it just never leaves me. It never leaves me. She says, you know, I love my husband, Tim. And I trust him. I trust him with my life. But when we had little Ann, a baby girl, and when Tim was giving her a bath, I walked back and forth, crossed the door, looking in at him. Yeah. Biggest success you will ever want to find for a human trafficking victim. But think about that. Think about that.
I can tell you, we're pretty much self-funded. It takes us $900,000 a year to take care of our kids. We'll have kids 16 years old, they've never seen a primary care physician. They've never seen a dentist. They've never seen a gynecologist, and you can imagine with what's happened to them, the needs of these kids, these wonderful nuns. I mean, teach them how to brush their teeth, teach them about feminine hygiene and everything like that.
Washing clothes, cleaning the
Yeah,
room.
life skills.
Life skills.
You know, learn how to cook, learn how to clean, take care of yourself, dress, comb your hair, all the different things that a mother teaches their daughter, okay? And my microphone just went, no it didn't.
Oh.
All right.
Oh.
But anyway, so these are some brochures up here, and they're available. Kelly and Sister Norma and Sister Norley are available for you to talk and ask questions. Any help you want to give us, we certainly appreciate it. We're very hard to keep our kids. And just a little side note, currently Father Chuck and I are working we've opened in Boston. We're working in Philadelphia, Charleston, Naples, Florida, Tomball, Texas, Fort Worth, San Angelo, and Denver. We're trying to replicate this model, the sister care model. One of the things we didn't tell you is for the 5 million people who are trafficked every year in the United States, we have less than 1,000 beds. But at the same time, we have more than 5,000 animal rescue shelters, each one holding 100 to 1,000 animals. And for $19 a month, no puppy deserves to live like this. For all you Peter people, I have nothing against your puppies and kittens, but human beings don't deserve to live like this. And so we're donor driven, and now we're open for questions. But
You forgot to say this is the best state, though.
oh, listen, we have had more legislation passed in this state for anti-trafficking measures. And that doesn't mean we're perfect, and I'm looking at our DA, because the DAs blame the judges blame the DAs, and we need to get a lot better at prosecution. We need to get a lot better, not only for the trafficker, but for the consumer. If you're 40 years old and you're having sex with a 13-year-old, your butt ought to be in jail for a very long time.
Tell him what happened to Kelly's dad. You know, the lady I told you about, for traffic from 3 to, tell what,
Tell about what?
he was,
Oh, yeah.
29.
The lady was trafficked by her dad from the age of 2. When she got to high school, she realized it wasn't right.
Yep.
She reported him. He got charged with 29 counts. He
Convicted
got
on
convicted
27
on 27.
and spent
2 months in jail. Our system's broken.
Yeah, but it's getting better. It really is.
We're working at it, and good people like your DA, and I can't say enough, because she's part of our, Christine Russell has been absolutely wonderful. So Christine, thanks for all you do.
How do you make it safe for a victim to ask for help in our community?
So the biggest thing with a victim is that you need to give them choices, because you have to remember that all of their choices have been taken away from them, and you have to let them tell you what they want to tell you at their own pace. So you never want to ask a lot of questions where you're asking for any kind of details about anything that has happened. That's going to be something for law enforcement and prosecutors to talk about and ask about. You don't want to do that. You also so one of the things we say is, it's the little choices, right, that can make a difference. If you say, oh, do you want something to drink? Give them a choice. Do you want a cola or an orange soda?
Where do you live? Most of them won't know. They're not allowed to speak for themselves, okay? But you saw in the video, 2 of those were our children. I found out their story when I saw the video. I mean, I love those children. I was with them every day, but I never, what happened to you? That's not my business. When she wants me to know it, she'll tell me.
It's called trauma-based counseling.
Yeah.
And it's a much easier push to get them to start thinking back, and so you don't push them on that, because they've been pushed all their lives.
Another question we have, and I'll let whoever decide the best one to answer it, and I hope I say this right. How do we get rid of NAMBLA? NAMBLA. It's a recruitment.
North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Yeah.
Well, did you hear that in Connecticut, they have passed legislation to protect minor attracted adults? Pedophiles. And I think it's Kansas as well, they've got that. Look, how do you get rid of that? Listen, everybody's got their own deal, but when it comes to children, that's not okay. When you're an adult and you want to swing from the chandeliers, go ahead. When it comes to children, it's in the political process. It's in the political process. And is it supported by taxpayer dollars?
Yes, it is.
Well, then the people can change out of the people who represent us.
Not in Louisiana.
No.
This is national.
Huh?
That's national.
Yeah, I know. Is a Congress appropriated deal?
Adam Schiff
Surprise, surprise.
appropriates a lot of money towards that sick organization.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, you want to talk about that? How come that they never released a manifest for people going to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island?
Because they got a D-body name there, Democrat.
How come, well, it's in all parties, but how come we don't know who's on P. Diddy's party list? Now, listen, I'm a priest. We know what we've been through. Every priest who's ever touched a child has been front page, time and time again, year after year. If they're guilty, I have no problem with that. If they've done it, I have no problem with exposing them. How come the higher-ups don't get exposed? Who's protecting them?
All right, another question I have is, years ago there was a show, Dateline, that used a sting operation to set up arrest criminals who preyed on underage girls. It seemed very successful. Does our state use this tactic now?
Yeah, we've been involved in some of those. State police, does that. A while back, there was a website called Backpage.com. You could go on Backpage.com and say, I'm in Check Bay, and I'm looking for company. And within 5 minutes, you'd literally have hundreds of young girls and or boys who depending on what you're looking for. And they'd be in various stages of undress talk about what they do, what they offer, and how much it costs. That was taken down by Congresswoman Ann Wagner and had Donald Trump sign a bill outlawing the back page escort service. But they found new ways. I'm just not up on the newest way, but to get trafficked online, there are plenty of ways.
So, do you guys ever see that? I don't particularly care for spiders. Anybody ever see that video where like the guy kills the spider and like 100 spiders run out of the spider? That's kind of what happened when we shut down Backpage. Is there are now hundreds more. Ask me the question again. There was something when you asked it that triggered. I wanted to talk about what our law enforcement does.
Sting operation.
Sting operations. So there is something, especially when we're talking about children, there's something in the United States called NCMEC, which is the National Database of Missing and Exploited Children. And so in the Attorney General's office, they operate something called the ICAT unit for the state of Louisiana, which is internet crimes against children. And we see a lot of human trafficking starting there, as well as pornography of children. We do not, in the Attorney General's office, they didn't run a lot of sting operations. Your local law enforcement will occasionally run sting operations, is kind of what they're called. But to be really 100% honest, you guys all know we have a crisis in law enforcement in this country. We are in the state. As a matter of fact, the governor issued an emergency order, one of the very first ones that he did to make it easier to hire law enforcement agents in the state. And so we do not have the manpower to run the sting operations the way we would like to. We do follow up the tips that come into state police headquarters and NCMEC through ICAT unit, and those do get filtered down to local law enforcement, but it takes all of their manpower or woman power, as the case may be sometimes, their staff power to just go after the tips and the things that they get online. I will also say that you have to understand that law enforcement agents who do this type of work get burned out very quickly. Prosecutors as well who do this work get burned out very, very quickly, because can you imagine you have to sit across from this perpetrator and look at them in the eyes and say, I get it. You're trying to get them to confess, and you say, I get it. You know, she's 10. She knew what she was doing. She came on to you. Can you imagine that you have to say that to get them to confess to you, so you don't have to put that child on the stand to prosecute that person? And that's what our law enforcement agents do this. The ones who do this are prosecutors, our investigators who deal with these cases really have been touched by God. Because they all have a passion for it. And so the sting operations don't happen as much as we would like to see them happen, but we do follow up on every single tip that comes in, either through the DCF hotline, the Fusion Center with LSP, the National Human Trafficking Prevention Hotline, or NCMEC.
Thank you. You know, another question is, we've got a room full of parents and grandparents.
Oh,
And
let me
you
say
alluded to
something to
this.
that.
Okay, go ahead.
If you have a child who lives in your home and has a cell phone, do not let that child take that phone to his bedroom at night. They've got a whole new thing coming out called sextortion. And they had a case in Brandon, Mississippi, of a 16-year-old kid, football star, great kid, happy-go-lucky. He gets a bang about midnight. Someone coming on, flashes a picture, says, okay, you know, flash me a picture. He's a 16-year-old kid, right? I mean, he doesn't think with his brain. But anyway, he flashes a picture. They expose himself and say, now we are going to send this to everyone at whatever high school. Goes on and on and on. And if you don't have $2,000 by tomorrow morning, and he's begging, and he's pleading, and they keep insisting, and he said, well, I'm just gonna have to kill myself. And they say, you just soon, because you're dead already. Boom. The kid kills himself. We've got 5 or 6 cases like that in the United States right now. Do not let your child take a phone to their room. There's nothing after whatever time they go to bed that they need that phone for. I need it for homework. Too late. You should have done that earlier. Do not let that child take a phone to bed. I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's good. You know, you alluded to earlier about Xboxes and so forth. Grandparents are probably not as aware of that, but you know, they're talking to one another on these Xboxes, and they're communicating with people who they believe to be their age who may or may not. If you guys could give us maybe the top 4, and I know it's impossible, the top 4 indicators that we as parents and grandparents should be looking for in our kids, our grandkids, and their friends, it'd be very helpful.
Does anybody know what Roblox is? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a YouTube, I don't know, it's a game online. It's marketed towards very young children. Make sure that the chat app is not activated. On the kids' YouTube channels, make sure that the chat portion is not activated. You think, oh, my kid is on chat, YouTube Kids, it's fine. If they're they can chat with someone. And so changes in sleep patterns, changes in anxiety level, you have to have access to all of their devices. You have to go in, you have to look at the chats, see what's going on. If you're not looking in them and looking at them and paying attention to what they're talking to, if they've activated it. And here's the rub, right? Here's the problem. How many people in here are baby boomers? Okay, how about Gen X? Okay, so I'm really talking to y'all and some of the older millennials maybe. These kids know way more about computers than we do. Way more than we do. And the thing is that you have got to teach yourself and you've got to learn. But when you start seeing differences in eating patterns, anxiety, when their phone dings, or when they do get a message and they get anxious or they get nervous, these are indicators that you need to start looking into what they're doing. And it doesn't, a personality change. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be the social media apps. It can be on Xbox, it can be on these handheld games, it can be on YouTube Kids, all of these different things that are connected to the internet.
How many of you parents would allow a man you don't know in his 40s to come to your front door and go into your 13-year-old son's room and play games with him?
Not me.
Well,
That's what
happens when most young boys are trafficked through gaming apps. Hey dude, you're really cool, you know, let's hang out, let's do this, let's meet at McDonald's. You never see him again.
There was an actual case in Louisiana, a young boy from Slidell who was about 3-4 years ago was kidnapped. He thought he was meeting up with a 16-year-old, and luckily he had told a friend of his what was going on. And when he didn't come home, his parents, the friend told the parents, look at his game, and whatever game it was, he was playing Fortnite or whatever game it was, and they went, and law enforcement was able to find 2 50-year-old men who lived in a trailer park in Florida and had 3 teenage boys who had been living with them for over 3 years. So the little boy from Slidell was 15 years old or 16, and he had only been in their custody for 3 days. So they hadn't sold him yet. But he was he definitely has some major trauma from that, but they rescued 4 boys altogether.
And Another question is, are all high school or many high school guidance counselors up on human trafficking and awareness?
No.
Are we doing that in our state?
No,
We're trying.
I was just telling who's from, on the Bessie board. There's a group out of Sarasota, Florida. It's called Global Strategic Operatives. It, along with the University of Michigan and St. Louis U, have developed a scope and sequence, K through 12. It's Christian based, and it's age appropriate warning education about human trafficking, and we need to do it. We also need to let emergency room personnel. We have a contract with Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and some of our children come from there. Most of our children have never been to a primary care physician. They've been to emergency rooms, and no one recognizes it.
I was just going to say it from locally. Education is the biggest push the commission's talking about right now, and we are being educated. Our law enforcement officers are being educated on what to look for. Before, maybe 10 years ago, we would have maybe a child abuse case. You ask certain questions and you move on. Now, they're starting to ask more questions to see if there's more to it. Is there more to this story, and is there more? Is it possibly a trafficking case? Whereas in the past, maybe we just went strictly with molestation. Now we're getting more educated on what do we ask. We're educating now, I think, hotels and people who work there, and our teachers, and everybody is being educated, and that is the big push. Just real quick about phones and everything else for everybody out there. We do presentations with our advocacy center here locally. We had over 3,500 kids since 2005 when we opened our doors have come through our center who have made allegations of physical or sexual abuse. And so we put on classes for our children, 5 years old to 18. We do it for our older folks, our guardians, our parents, and our teachers. And we talk about what to look for. And we have different presentations on what to look for when it comes to the phones. And so for you guys, just real quick, if you bought the phone for your kid, it's yours. I don't go with this right to privacy in your house if it's the phone. It's your phone. So sit down with them with your phone and say, can I have your password? And go through the phone. You should know their password. I will tell you that every presentation that we give, whether they're 5-year-old or they're 15-year-old, and we ask the question, you can't get in trouble. How many of your parents or guardians or grandparents pick up your phone at night and go through them? No hands go up. So we know that our kids are on this with absolutely no supervision. And I used to always say, I say it all the time, I used to say the pedophiles are at Chuck E. Cheese because that's where your kids are. That is not where they are. The pedophiles are on their phones. And so you need to educate yourself. You need to educate yourself on what children are doing online, and you need to educate yourself on apps. Real quick, do you know there's something called hidden apps, HIDDEN. Google, just for fun later, hidden apps. What they are is like a calculator. And if you put in a certain code and it flips, and all the things they don't want you to see, the pictures they don't want you to see are behind the hidden apps. So I say it all the time, if your son has 5 calculators, he doesn't love math. Okay? So sit down with your child, go through the phone with them, and you should do that. I mean, every once in a while, just out the blue, say, let's sit down and go through your phone, and go through it. And I think if you surprise them often enough and you go through it, then they're going to start behaving on that phone and maybe not doing the things that they're doing because you don't know about it. Sorry, I can go on for an hour about that.
I will say from a state standpoint, from the Governor's Office on Human Trafficking Prevention, we have just rolled out a program. I did a 2-hour Zoom training yesterday. It was quite painful, but I had 175 emergency room professionals from 3 different states on the training, talking about human trafficking, what it looks like, what it is, what are signs, what they can do about it. We are partnering with the Louisiana Hospital Association to continue rolling this out and continue doing things with their emergency room staffs. Our office is speaking this year at the Superintendents of Education the state superintendent, or for all the different parishes, all the superintendents at their conference this summer. So for the past 8 years or so, I have really done a lot of work with law enforcement, the judicial system, trying to educate in trauma, in human trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault, on phones, all of those things. And now our big initiative in the office is to start reaching out and move into the school system, which is very, very difficult, and into the medical profession. Once we get some of the ED staffs, and the hospital here in Thibodeau has reached out to me personally to get me to come in and do some training for them. But once we start doing those, then we're going to start hitting the urgent cares to try and get them as well, because we do see them going into those a lot. I will say something that I found is very interesting about schools is that I don't know if you guys, it's kind of the other end of the state, but I've been to Reeves, Louisiana. Anybody know where Reeves, Louisiana is? It's 8th grade to 12th grade, and I had 78 students. I had the whole 8th grade through 12th grade, the whole school, in a presentation, and there were 78 students. And I had a handful of parents, and they were so great, they loved it, they listened to everything I said. The parents came up to me after, they were like, this is fantastic. I could not get into a school in Baton Rouge. No school in Baton Rouge would let me come in and do a presentation. They would have to look at the presentation first, and they'd see our presentation and say, you can't tell that to your kids. And I told them, I tell you, your kids know way more than what this presentation says, I promise you.
We had a case in social media, Facebook. Young girl lived in a gated community, went to the most expensive private high school. She goes to party with friends. Her friends are ready to go to another party. She says, no, I'm going to stay, I'll get a ride. She goes on Facebook and says, hey, trying to get a ride to Connie's house. Well, these trolls, these internet trolls, show up. Hey, Connie told me you're looking for a ride. Her parents found her 14 months later. They were wealthy, so they could hire retired FBI. She was very attractive. She was sold into the porn industry in LA. When they found her, she was drug addicted and catatonic, just no response, and she could remember 30 or 40 sexual favors a day. So I can't begin to tell you how dangerous it is to have unfettered access for your children on these devices. I mean, it's just, it's frightening. I mean, I went to tech school on a short bus, okay? I mean, I don't know how to, and like you said, these kids know 10 times, 20 times more than I know. But be careful, that's all I'm telling you.
Another question, and I think we're doing this partly tonight, but it's how do you raise awareness of trafficking in your community? Well, that's one thing we're doing tonight, but in what other ways can we raise awareness in our community?
So we have, if you have other groups, you have church groups, neighborhood associations, any civic groups, any of those kind of groups at all. The way that we got into the Superintendent's Association is through Rotary. Rotary does a lot of work in this area, and so someone high up in state Rotary is high up in the Superintendent Association, and that's how we got connected. But we do have care coordinators throughout the state who we train. I've trained most of them myself personally. We train them in all these issues, and they can come out to your local groups and do presentations.
Thank you. Next for Ms. Monica, you've already addressed this once, but I'm going to read the question because somebody turned it in. What about your example of 35-year-olds soliciting with a 13-year-old with game coins? How does it make it difficult for a jury to prosecute? And the follow-up to that is, who sets the term of sentence for convictions?
So I'm going to kind of tag team this with DA Russell. The reason why it's so difficult is because people think of human trafficking, like I said, as a triangle. So they want a buyer, a seller, and a victim. If I can't give them a seller, then sometimes it's hard for them to make that connection that having a buyer and a victim constitutes human trafficking. I'll give another super quick example, and then I'll let DA Russell talk about this. There was a case out of Houston, a 16-year-old girl, she hadn't been in school for a little bit. Oh, and this is another good example. We're also starting to train our SROs, our school resource officers, in this as well. That's another big piece of this. School resource officer noticed a 16-year-old girl hadn't been in school in a while. On his way home one day, he saw her getting out of a truck with an older gentleman. So he pulled over and he stopped and he started talking to her and asking her some questions. Come to find out, her mother had been sex trafficking her for about the last 4 years. She was 16, so since she was 12 years old. And her mother was a drug addict, and her mother had been gone for about a week and a half. And she ran out of money. And she was hot. The electricity was being cut off, and she was hungry. So she had the number of this, or the email, or some way to contact this man who was in his 60s, who was not that bad to her. He wasn't super mean to her. He didn't beat her. He wasn't really freaky or anything. He was fairly calm in what he did to her. So she contacted him and asked him if he wanted to pay her for a tryst. And he said yes, and he came and picked her up, they did whatever, and he gave her some money and bought her McDonald's. Her mother did not traffic her in that particular situation, but the gentleman was arrested and they did run a sting operation on her mother, who admitted to trafficking her in previous situations. She was 16, she did not own her consent to sell herself. So in that case, it was just a straight line. And so it can be difficult to get people to understand that, but I'm going to let DA Russell.
I think, and I'll talk about Lafourche and Terrebonne. So I think here, if we had a sex trafficking case, I think people here certainly would not have a difficult time making that leap if we educate them, which is what a jury trial is all about. I will tell you that the hardest part of getting cases to trial, when you talk about sex victims, domestic abuse victims, you're talking about the human element, you're talking about children, and I'm going to talk about children because I did sex cases for 15 years. The hardest thing is getting them to go to trial, and I'll tell you why. If I asked all of you right now to think about your first sexual experience, and I asked you all the questions about what happened and what did it feel like and what did they say and all the things, and I asked you to stand up in front of everybody and tell everybody what was your first sexual experience. And then we expect a 5-year-old to get in the stand and look at a bunch of strangers and tell them what happened. So one, that's very difficult for you to do. Can you imagine a 5-year-old? Number two, oftentimes the people they love have hurt them, but they're still people that they love. It's still dad, it's still papa, it's still mom. And we're expecting them to take this responsibility and take a stand and point them out and say, that's the people who did it to me, knowing full well they're going to go to jail. And who was responsible for it? That 5-year-old that took the stand. And so oftentimes what will happen is we can all agree they should go to jail the rest of their life. We can agree on that. But to do that, sometimes we have to put children through a process that's very, very difficult. It'd be difficult for you. Can you imagine how it is for a 5-year-old? So that's sometimes why we make a plea offer and we do what we need to do. I had a child who was pulling their eyelashes out the week before a trial because mama stood by her man and she knew that she was getting it to go in there, and at the end of the day, all the family members said, because of you, we won't have any money because daddy's going to go to jail. So what do you do at that point? You tell them, I'm going to be the bad guy and I'm going to make sure that we take a plea offer and you don't have to look at him in the face. And that is why sometimes it is very difficult. As prosecutors, and we'll talk later, as prosecutors, we want them to go away. We want bad guys to go away, but that we still have that responsibility when it comes to children and victims to make sure that once we're finished and we check it off our list that we got the bad guy, that these people can move on and have a productive life, and we have not hurt them even worse than they've already been hurt.
Our second victim was her father's 17th child by 11 different women. And she was the first female. And Dad realized he could do more with the daughter than with the son. And he started, then the uncle started, and then she became a source of income. And it came time for trial, and she said, how come I can't testify against my dad. And I said, because you're 15 years old, and if he goes to jail, you have no body, you have nothing, and you have 16 brothers who are going to turn on you. It's a hell of a place to be. I mean, I can't tell a child. You know, I couldn't take her in and say, you know, I'll raise you and take care of you and get everything you need. I couldn't do that. And like she's saying, some of these kids are just in the most horrible situations. And some of them just, regardless of what you do, they can't face it. They just can't, you know, and that's difficult.
The United States has the best criminal justice system in the world. I will say that. I truly believe that in my heart, that the United States has the best criminal justice system in the world. But it is flawed. And it is built, it does not always, sometimes it does, but it doesn't always protect victims. And that's the truth. And so when we have fantastic district attorneys like D.A. Russell, who will be the bad guy and say, you know what, I'm gonna take the hit in the press, I'm gonna take the hit in the public, even though I'm elected, because I don't wanna put this child through that. That is someone who cares about victims, and that is someone who makes our criminal justice system work. And we have law enforcement who does that every day, as well as prosecutors in this state.
All right, the next question. At what point is enough enough? When do we stop funding a broken system that is run by crooked representatives with our tax dollars? I'm going to take that question. Here's when. Right now.
November.
Right now. You know, too many times we wait till it happens on our street before we decide to get involved. You cannot wait till it comes to your neighborhood before you determine that it's time for you to take a stand. You need to take a stand now, and we have a wonderful legislative committee as part of We the People who keeps up with the legislation that's going before our state and can help and has opened doors to our representatives and our local senators where you have access to them to let them know what's important to you. And it is important to protect these children before the fact, not after the fact. So the question is, now is the answer.
The only thing I would say to that is I think a lot of people, I have to say this, I think a lot of people would say we started last October when we elected Jeff Landry as governor of this state. And I believe in the last 100 or so days, he has proven by having a criminal justice special session on criminal justice, by some of the laws that he has passed this session and are still passing and signing into law this session. The fact that he is fighting legislators, he is holding their feet to the fire, not backing down from them. He has done more in the first 100 days than any governor that I can remember, and believe me, I know because I've been there working my tail off alongside him as well. He has worked tirelessly for the state, and he's going to keep doing that, and he's trying to do it by calling the Constitutional Convention. And so I think in Louisiana at least, we've started already. You guys have started by being here. You guys have started by having this group. But I also think voters started in Louisiana when they went to the polls in October and elected him outright in a very crowded field, not having to go into a runoff. I think it was a clear message then.
Yes. The next question I have is, when meeting with school supers, will you come out with new videos for training for the entire staff and students? Florida has this as part of their curriculum, and this person said, I'm on the school board, so.
We've got to get in there first. We've got to get in the door first, and we are working on creating content for that. We're working with some different, we work with a lot of survivors to tell us what is things to look for, what are their signs, what are things that we should be saying and not saying. So we take our survivor counsel very, very seriously, and listen to what they have to say. So we are working with them to do those kinds of things, yes.
You'd be surprised how many people want to spare their children education about this. Oh, no, this is too, you know, I mean, this will scare them. Well, they ought to be scared, because the boogerman's out there, I need to tell you. They need to be scared, but, I mean, I'm talking about Catholic schools as well. Oh, no, we don't, you know, that'll scare them. We don't want that.
Thank you. This is for Christine. Where can our children's grandchildren and their parents attend these seminars you mentioned? You give, and are they open to the public? These notes are really written almost as bad as I'm writing. Anyway.
So our office partners with the Children's Advocacy Center. I'm the director of that, and the district attorney. So the forensic interviewer who's there. Since 2005, we have been putting on presentations. All you have to do is call the office, and I will arrange for it. We have over 30 presentations, depending on who our audience is. We have been to every single school and probably every class over the past 10, 15 years trying to educate. And then we have parent presentations at night that we invite people to. And usually we get 5 to 10 parents who show up. So we will do any group, any organization. I do safe environment groups. I did one not long ago where I talked about the things that we talked about phones and things like that, about internet safety. And when we talk about educating our children on human sex trafficking, there's a way to do it without going in and saying, I'm going to educate on human sex trafficking. When we go in and talk about safety on your phones, and we talk about that guy that may be reaching out to you playing games, you are educating them on human sex trafficking without saying sex trafficking. So what we do is we educate children how to keep themselves safe online from the bad people, and that's educating them. And so there is a way to do it, to get into the schools without offending anybody and making sure that we teach them without having to say the words that they don't want us to say. And so if you want us to go to an organization or a group, all you have to do is call me at the office and we will go at any time and do that for you.
All right, thank you. Next, is there anything that the nuns or the director would like to share with us to give us a little additional wisdom?
Sister Norma, you're first. No, you're first.
I don't know what to say. We are 5 in Metanoia, serving the girls. We stay with them 24/7, as Father said. Of course, we welcome a girl when she comes, and we usually don't ask anything when they come because it is a very sensitive process. They come and they don't know the place, who are their nuns and things like that. And in many ways, they're scared. But we are there to love them, to accept them as they are, no judgment. And after a few days, they relax a little bit and stay with us and eat with us. Trust is a very big issue. We have to trust them. Although probably we know already their diagnosis when they come, where they come from, but we have to give them that trust in order for us to build that relationship with them. It's very, very important for them to stay. Otherwise, they will run away. But we love them as they are, wherever they come from, Florida, Alabama, or Michigan, New Orleans, very famous. We love them as they are. So, thank you. Kelly will tell you what the program we provide.
So the program we provide at Metanoia is, we start with, of course, some trauma therapy. We ensure that the girls get some education. A lot of them come to us years behind in education. And so we work every single day, day, night, 24/7, to make sure that they are getting well fed, that they are loved, that they are clothed, that they are clean, that they can focus on their education, focus on healing from their trauma. And we get the benefit of seeing some success stories. We actually are able to see these girls, once they feel safe, they are much more creative. And they begin to draw, and they begin to tell stories that are healthy for them. And so we really, on our end, it's difficult when they come, but we also work so hard to be able to see the success stories and be able to put these girls back into our communities so that they can live an adult life that's healthy and productive.
Thank you so much. Father Jeff, I'm going to give you, well, actually, I'm going to tell you I'm going to give you 15 seconds, but it's really going to be 30, to go ahead and any final thoughts that you might have.
No, just, first of all, we're grateful for being here. We welcome the opportunity to educate any way that we can. I think it's a scourge for our society. You judge a society by the way you treat your most vulnerable. And our most vulnerable are not treated very well. So thank you for letting us be here. Anything you can do to help us, sisters and the girls will be here afterwards.
Thank you. And Miss Monica, same thing. You get your 30 seconds.
Yes, so I just want to say that thank y'all so much for having me. I love coming to this area because it means I get to work with Chief Sarang, I get to work with the Sheriff's Office. We have several people from the Sheriff's Office that are here. I appreciate them, as well as DA Russell and all the work that she does. And I do want to tell you guys, because I like to lift these guys up as much as I can in case you guys hadn't noticed that already. Y'all are very, very lucky by the law enforcement and prosecutors that you have in this area. You have some amazing, amazing people leading y'all in this area. So thank you, and thank you Chief Sarang and DA Russell and all of you from the Sheriff's Department for coming out tonight.
This is a subject that is very dear to all of our hearts, and it has broken our hearts. But tonight, we made this decision while the meeting was going on, but we would like to donate $1,000 from We the People.
Have fun bringing that to the bank.
Have fun trying to cash this at the bank. Thank you, and thank you for coming. This is a very difficult subject. And I mean, every meeting that we have covers very important information, so please keep us in mind in the climate of our country today, because we do follow Christ and we speak truth. Those are our two goals, and we inform our community. Thank you, God bless you, and you'll have a nice night.